Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Advanced philosophy memes. We make good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Shoutouts to Integrative, Deacon, my boy Scott, Pedro, and everyone else that engages on my posts, etc. Keep it up, man. You'll get there someday. And everyone else from Great Memes.
Yes, we're here. We're live. We're also live on FChat for the uncensored chat. Go to fchat.net/Exertis. You can also untaxed super chats. Go there. We'll show what is said on the screen, so long as it can be censored. But yeah, this is all uncensored stuff. What's even happening here? Buffy, Silver Linings, Barbie on 11 years. Okay, I don't even know what that's about. But that's pretty fun. So how are you guys doing? Say it again, Jordan.
That's an effed up chat.
Yeah, it's effing crazy in FChat. So how have you been? Let's start with Jordan. You've been working on stuff. There's a show you're doing. We're doing a show with Thomas, Parenthood American, later. Tell us what's going on with you.
Yeah, man, things are good. The turtles are good. We're starting to lose summer here in Thunderberry area of Canada, which sucks. We had a really cold, shitty day today. But other than that, things are good. Yeah, we do have a live show, another Divulgence Exertis episode coming up tonight. We're going to talk about some risque things, some human sacrifice, and some other stuff. I don't know what we can say. We're not quite 3 minutes in, but yeah, I'm very excited. Paranoid American will be there, and yeah, I'm just happy to be here with you guys right now, though. How's everyone else doing?
Yeah, Raphael, what about you? What are you up to?
I'm doing fine. We're sitting across of each other, so I'm not sure what to say. What about you guys? Well, or what to tell you guys? Well, here
you got to give me more, though,
still...
Raph. Come on,
yeah,
do it for
exactly.
me.
Exactly. No, of course, no. Weather is still pretty good here. Briefly, we thought it's gonna turn cold, but that happens if you don't see much of the sun. If you have more of the sun, then it's quite warm. There's still quite a few people here on the beach in Budva that are enjoying themselves. Yeah, I guess the mood is good and everything's chill, so we're good. And also we started editing some of the videos for the Bosnian pyramids where we've been. We're quite soon we're going to release the first parts of that, which should hopefully be fun for everyone to watch.
We got some comments here already from Budva. Here's our Montenegrin moderator. What's up, bro? Yeah, you in Budva? Yeah, we are in Budva. Actually, I'm in Pacici, bro. I'm just like the cove next to Budva. Well, it's still pretty much the same thing. We walk to Budva every day. How long are we staying? We're here for another 10 days, and then we're going to go to KOTOR. So I'll be in Montenegro at least another month or so. So pretty based. Loving it here. We did stay up late because I was working on my video. I hope you guys all, here's a little plug the way Amazon Prime does it, where you want to watch a video and then they're like, well, wouldn't you please watch our other videos? Pretty please. So like, make sure you go to YouTube, go to Exertis, check out the newest video. It's about how the Bolsheviks in the 1920s tried to make family illegal. They wanted to ban families, ban marriage, and they darn well got close, actually, for a while until Stalin reversed the policies. But it's a pretty interesting documentary, if I do say so myself. We go into, Bolshevik feudalism into feminism, if you will, and the idea of the automated society. And what if you just made a bunch of babies in like baby pods, you know, like some of you Tartarians know about the orphan trains, the foundling story. If you like Tartaria, you'll love knowing a bit about the one time that the entire freaking country of Russia and the Soviet Union wanted to take away babies from every parent and make them all into state commune babies, communist babies raised by the state, which, I mean, what a brave new world, my friends. Something to look into. Yeah, check out Soviet Lost Boys, Death of a Family in the Bolshevik Foundry. New video from Exertis Broadcasting Service, my friends. Okay, Chris, how about you? You swinging swords around? How you been? What are you up to?
Yeah, always. I've just been sinking into like very materialist interests, like computer shit and car shit. And I think I've been intentionally avoiding like metaphysics and spirituality and conspiracy theories, you know, stuff I usually consume. It's just, I just want to see, like, I want to see if I'll lose it, quote unquote, if I just stop paying attention to this shit for a while. And
don't you think you already lost it? Or you're trying to like lose the interest in being crazy? Like you want to go back to the rails? Is that what you're trying to say? Back on the rails?
no, I mean, I just, you know, for example, like getting back in touch with like work people and fucking, like learning like skills that have nothing to do with like, maintaining my inner holistic harmony and all that stuff. And, you know, like just more earthy skills. And, also watching like shitty movies. I feel like I'm just kind of getting my pulse back, finger back on the pulse of just normie, regular people society.
How normie is like a sword fighter? I'm just saying, like, you know, this is our resident samurai here swinging swords around. I feel like you can pretend to be normie all you want, bro, but you're one of those based playing characters. You know what I mean? Who, like the moment you're swinging a sword around and wearing a kimono, I'm pretty sure you're outside of the normative in the best of ways. But you know what?
Yeah, but you got to understand, like, I'll be at the dojo, right? And it's not the same, you know, because like I'll even feel like an outsider there because I'll be like, you know, they'll talk about like their very upscale jobs, like as doctors or lawyers or something. And I'm just like sitting there. It's like, yeah, well, I did some coke last weekend, and you know, I got a blowjob this morning. That was pretty cool. So it's like, you know, I still feel like, you know,
a man of the world.
Ideally, that's how I you know, that's how I idealize it in my mind. But the truth is, I'm probably just like a little bit of a degenerate, you know.
Divulgence right here. I was at the dojo. Classic start of a sentence, right there. Yeah.
But
Let
you
me
know,
also, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I just want to close it off by saying I'm used to being like an outsider at this point. I'm just more comfortable that way, you know.
I mean, he's the only sensei I've ever seen who does a plug for Monster Energy. So, I mean,
that was
respect, sensei. Respect.
Which side are you on, man?
I was just trolling,
dude. So just so you know, like we're plugging the stream pretty hard today. So we got F chat all set up. People were excited to see the Bosnian pyramids. Raphael has been editing all the footage that we created. Yeah, Quake getting called out for being awesome. It's true. But we have all this great footage on the Bosnian pyramids, how they're like super awesome and ancient and have EMF energy and the 28 hertz. And we got like, you'll see that coming up. We're going to probably do like a members week and then release them publicly. But also just like the streams right now, if you want, you can see them anywhere. So we have it on Instagram right now. We have this on Odyssey playing right now. We have this on Twitch. You can look at this right here. We got the Twitch stream going on. We even have Rumble and YouTube, Exertis on X on Twitter. So yeah, basically anywhere you want to go, you can't escape it. APM is happening all the time due to the weight of expectations, which I think would be kind of like a topic I was thinking about. We can talk about all kinds of things, but I was thinking about like going into the weight of expectations to an extent, right? Because what do you think about like the expectations that have been put on you as men, as human beings, you know, mothers, whatever you are? There's all these expectations that they have on you. I think this relates a lot to what Chris was just saying in terms of like, yeah, he's supposed to be a sensei who teaches kids how to be honorable and swordsmen in the most traditional sense possible, but he's still a man living in the world, living in the modern world.
To be fair, I could also be a buzzkill easily, like amongst my friends, where I'll be like, you guys are complaining an awful lot, or I'll be like, when was the last time you actually got some exercise instead of complaining about how you're feeling? Right? Yeah, I'll say shit like that too all the time. But like
That's
I said,
just diagnostic though, right? Like you're just like, hey, have you noticed that? Because like we were thinking about this the other day. There's these people. Oh, I don't want to even like go into it because I feel bad saying it. I'm gonna try to like generalize it. But there's this person who became. How can I say this? They became transgender. And we were thinking about it because they're super awesome. They're really brilliant. They're one of the best people in the world. They just happen to have some problems before all that. Like they're obese, they eat bad food, and they're not exercising nearly enough and everything like that. And so they clearly, when you do that, like your body has like super bad hormonal imbalance. Like that's an obvious factor of eating gluten or the wrong gluten, at least, or eating like genetically modified Doritos or something like that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here, but eating really bad junk food all the time probably doesn't help the way you feel. Having like really crazy refined sugars and extreme doses of caffeine or drinking alcohol or like anything that can throw the way you feel around a little bit. And you're a big boy, I feel like that. No one wanted to tell this person though, because you got to respect where they're coming from, and you have to hey, that you want to be transgender, that's beautiful, or that's glorious for you, or that's brave and stunning, whatever it is. But no one's allowed to say, are you sure it's not just because like you need to diet and exercise, and wouldn't that maybe change the way you feel about your hormones and stabilize you a little bit? And this is where I feel like are we in danger just by even suggesting that's something you should look into before you do body modification surgery and take synthetic hormones? Is like, can you just get yourself in check, right?
To be fair, I mean, when
that's just one sentence, not without naming any names, people can maybe deduce who we're talking about. This was just a random conversation we had, but I always think this is especially insane to me if that individual actually is in an environment where there's plenty of resources, plenty of money available. And instead of doing that and retaining your employee that then maybe actually fit and healthy and still super smart, you just, how should I say, let them take that route without any type of information, let's say. And at this point, I'm even wondering to what extent is that really a conscious and consensual, how we would say that, choice, rather than just what the mainstream put in front of you, like, oh, you're not feeling happy. Have you tried mutilating yourself and becoming a different gender? Where I'd be like, well, there's 100 million things I would check first, and then you can still consider that.
Well, to be fair, I mean, if there's one key dynamic I usually look at when it comes to these things is the complaining, is the complaints themselves. It's like, what exactly are you complaining about? I mean, that's the only metric that I could really judge a person, regardless of how they choose to live. If they have nothing to bitch about, who the fuck am I to say anything? However, if they're like sitting there complaining about, oh, my back hurts, or oh, I don't feel good, or if it's constant, like I'm bored, like whatever they're complaining about, because that's really what I hone in on. And that's why I make a point to try to like complain as little as humanly possible. So it's like, because that's pretty much it. Like you could only really judge a person by what they're unhappy about. And people have no qualms about telling you flat out what they don't like, primarily about their own life experience. So it's like, if I see a person like eating, mountains of garbage and they're just not getting any exercise, but they're happy as a clam and knowing full well they're going to die in like 5 years, I'm like, who the fuck am I to tell them anything, But if I see a person who's like a health obsessed like nut and there's just constantly bitching about other people, about their emotional state, and that's what I dissect, regardless of how much exercise they got or whatever. I'm like, clearly there's something not working out here,
So, but like, what's the go? You have Jordan, you have a thought?
Just to add to what Raph was saying, it's just unbelievable that people are getting scorned for coming out and saying, like, maybe that's not the best thing to do right now is chop off your genitals or chop your tits off or anything like that. Especially if they have like a unhealthy upbringing or unhealthy current environment or lifestyle to begin with. There's so many other things that can be tried. I mean, I would imagine things aren't that different state by state or province by province when it comes to the legislation, but it's I just think it's ridiculous. Like, it's just another one of these ways for people to try to cancel people or to have a false talking point. It's just like saying Nazi, you're a Nazi, or you're Hitler. You just break someone down without actually talking to them, or
I'm a
trying to
gratitude
dissect
Nazi.
or any kind of Nazi. So it's just it's ridiculous. I do have trans friends. I do know people that are trans, and I mean, I can't say that puts me in the understanding, in complete understanding with them, but yeah, I mean, I've got no problem with that. But when it comes to, like, especially children, they're not developed yet mentally or physically. So I just think it's dangerous, and it's dangerous to scorn people for talking out against it, or making other suggestions other than the drastic ones.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be nice if people were allowed to try other things first. I'm not saying that we should stop people from doing what that makes them happy or anything like that, but I just wish that there were, like, more steps that people tried first before, like, you give your life over to a pharmaceutical and plastic surgeon corporation, because it seems like that's the way to rope you into a subscription plan to be happy for the rest of your life. And that might not be the same thing as becoming this other thing. And a big part of that is expectation, because you've got this idea of, like, I mean, you were saying, like, different in terms of state by state or country by country in terms of legislation, but just culturally, I've noticed that a lot of people that end up, because Californians had transgenders probably before most other places besides New York, right? And generally speaking, a lot of people there just kind of ended up with the end of gender as a solution, not like gender itself, because there's still sex and there's still, like, XY, XX chromosomes, and we're not quite transhuman enough to mutate that, but we're still talking about what people expect a woman to do, right? What people expect a man to be. And in a lot of circumstances, people I've met who've been trans are, like, from Iowa, or they're from some small place in the Midwest where their farming family says, hey, be like your brother. You're a boy. Be like your brother who became a football star. And they're thinking, well, I can't be a football star, so maybe that means I can't be a man. And maybe I should be more like, my aunt. I really like my aunt. She likes to cook. I'm pretty good at cooking. Maybe that means I'm a woman. And I see this happening way more often than makes sense. So many people have this idea of expectation of what it means to be engendered, which is totally, people always say gender is the same thing as sex. I don't agree with that, actually. I'm pretty sure that sex is real and gender is the social expectation on your sex. They're like, well, you're a woman, so you should take care of babies. You should paint. You should do whatever. Like, you're just a woman, right? Like, I think that's engenderment. That's different than, or you're a man. Why are you crying? Why are you crying? Why are you crying? Be a man. Be a man. Like, this whole thing.
That's I like using that against people who, like, really hone in on gender dynamics, and then they start, like, I'm like, come on, man up, right? I really don't believe in that shit. I'm like, I couldn't care fucking less. But the fact that they care kind of means they're open to that criticism.
I mean, it's definitely interesting, because a lot of what makes transgender is that conservative ideology to conserve what it means to be socially engendered, right? Because if you think that a man is supposed to provide and achieve, and a female or a woman is supposed to nurture and sacrifice, you're going to have a bad time, because a lot of men are not going to be able to provide, especially in this world where everything is a consumer model, on a subscription basis. You have to work till you're dead. Look
True.
at Japan. Look around the world. Look how well that's
Look at us.
Work out. Yeah, look at us right now. How manly
not
are
easy.
We really, though? I mean,
yeah, it's not easy. I mean, what I could give up a lot of, like, lifestyle factors if I chose to, like, go the family route. I don't, it is what it is, but still, like, it's not easy for anyone now, like you said.
Dude, yeah, and, like, if a mother's not supposed to provide and achieve, and, like, what's the difference between providing and nurturing, and what's the difference between achieving and sacrificing? Because, like you just said, a lot of to achieve is to sacrifice, and you're talking about what it would be like. That's, you got the goddess in you, bro. You're talking about sacrificial, sacrificing for a family. So if that's a mother's job, why is that so manly? I think the whole thing gets really confusing.
Well, I mean, I just look at Parenthood, because I was raised by a single dad, essentially. Like, I didn't see him much, but we were close. And from from that perspective, I guess I still saw a bit of sacrifice, even though, don't get me wrong, I'm sure mother sacrificed like a lot more things materially. It's just, you know, I always looked at having a kid in general as something where it's like, all right, well, my life is over in a sense, like a part of it. And now it's like about the kid. That's why, you know, because I don't want a kid really, because like I know what it means. That means like I'm gonna have to like stop being so much about my own experience and cultivate in others. Not that I'm saying it's such a bad thing. It's just maybe I'm not ready for it. I don't know. Got to think about it.
So what do you, I mean, because a lot of the time I hear everyone say that before they have a kid, and then people seem to think that having a kid gives them like so much more purpose and someone to share with that achievement, or to like to share the spoils with. I mean, it's expensive and it's like hard and everything at first, but a lot of the time having a kid means that you have someone to bounce ideas off of and someone to reflect on. I mean, do you feel like do you think it's not for everybody and it's not necessarily for you, or do you think it's like not time for you yet? You have still more time?
Well, just from what I've seen, I have so many friends who've like had kids before they really found themselves. And, you know, sometimes down the line, they find themselves and they realize, wow, I'm actually supposed to be a parent. Whereas other people are like, I'm living the wrong life. I got to like stop and leave my family and, you know, do something else because I'm not happy. So I don't know. But then I think it's like once you do get to that point before you have a family, it's like you're a lot less likely to jump into it or have like an accidental birth, because you're going to be more about cultivating your holistic wellness than trying to fulfill an inner void with a girlfriend, a boyfriend, kids, a pet, a house, a car, a career, and all that shit. You know, you're just pretty much staving off the inevitable, which is death. So, you know, once you're okay with all that and then you have a kid, ideally that's probably a better situation. But I think 9 times out of 10, people just jump into this shit trying to fulfill a void, trying to fulfill something they feel is lacking from their life. Well, what if you fulfill that? Are you still going to want a kid as badly? Are you going to want a kid at all? You know, like that's kind of what I think about.
I totally want to jump in here. I could not agree more with your basic sentiment. I really wonder so often how often it's not just like a replacement, or how do you call it, sublimation of whatever desires one may have. And what I would actually recommend everyone, maybe especially the singles or the non-parents, but maybe for the parents it's the same. Treat yourself as you would in the most positive sense. Now, of course, this comes with quite a few caveats, but I'm just saying it like this, as if you were your own child and would love yourself unconditionally. What are the things you would do? How would you treat yourself? How well would you feed yourself? What would you recommend to yourself? And yeah, and then of course the same thing can be done when you actually do have a child. But I really do think oftentimes it's like fulfillment sublimation or something like that. And also I'm wondering, how are we even supposed to progress? I mean, there's many great families and great dynamics. I don't want to deny that at all.
And
but
there's an
economic thinking like, just one sentence, I'm thinking like, well, you're only 25 or whatever age. You haven't even developed yourself. So what are you going to pass on now? Is it even something that you've built up that you can actually pass on? Or are you just a child? And hot take from previously in terms of maybe not necessarily transgendering every 12-year-old. Hot take is how many 30 or 40-year-olds in this world actually are properly developed and fully functional. And I'm not even saying that I am that, and maybe even far from it, but at least to have that as a conscious goal, try to build up something that then you can actually share either with your own children or with your peers, other children. There's many children around anyways.
I find that ironic. Raphael is from a socialist country where he doesn't really need to do any of that in order to have kids. I see, like, that's the thing. I hope people take the time to lurk my video, because the more I look into the Soviet plan to have universal childcare, the more I see how half of that's been done here in America and around the world already. I mean, in a lot of these countries like Germany, they pay you to have a kid. I mean, they literally, each kid gets like $250 or something like that a month, or
yeah. And I
$500.
also want to add, aside from the sublimation of an inner void, like there's an economic incentive to maybe not force, but try to really convince the global population to keep breeding. Because if you have like greater production, you're going to need more bodies to a point. Hopefully, maybe automation will fill in the gaps. I don't think it will anytime soon. But like up until now, like, yeah, you needed bodies, you needed to breed. And like, I don't think what's it called? Having people find their enlightenment or self-fulfillment is that conducive to just making them breed and create like a mindless workforce, And so how much of like your desire to have a kid is really like oh, is it just something that's like I'm meant to do by God's, divine order, or is it just because fucking McDonald's needed more workers at some point, or like fucking Ford needed more hands on the assembly line in China or some shit,
Isn't it weird though that like most of those companies are telling you to not breed? Like, I mean, my parents didn't have me till they were like 40, right? I'm the firstborn of like really old parents who did the whole, they were educated and told like you should wait until you have a nest egg or something that you can work with. And that's not necessarily the best. I don't think that's the best, honestly, because there, it seems like a trap to get you to wait until you don't have a nest. You're too old and there's no way for you to have kids. There's too many people I see that are like 38 to 40 that are like, oh my God, I should have had a kid. And then they're miserable because they didn't have kids. So there's no one with them when they get over their youth, when your youth is over. And, when you grow up with your kids, I see plenty of people that were accidentally having kids when they were in high school. And they're the happiest people I know. Like they're the most content, stable, healthy people generally that I know are people that had kids young. Now they're like 40 and their kids are like 18. And they can go off and they can live their lives and their kids are going to go off and live their lives. And generally speaking, there are all of these things that make it different than it was 150 years ago when people were having 12 to 15 kids. Now you have like one or two, and the schools are there. And
I
like
want to say you say that, but numerically, like you look at the global population in the 1920s, it was 1.5 billion. Now it's at like 7 to 8 billion. So I do think there is a significant difference between being born after like the green industrial revolution, where like we learned how to artificially fertilize soil to 10x our crop yield. Boom, you get to feed that many more people with like way more efficient land usage. So like that being said, I mean, again, like once you were born after this era of food industrialization, you were literally existing because you're allowed to by some conglomerate, by some food production conglomerate. And that's been the case since not even that long, like what, literally 100 years ago.
But even just from like 1990, like birth rates were averaged around the world 3.3 births per woman in 1990, and it's 2.3 today. And it's projected to continue to decrease to 1.8 around the world by 2100. I mean, there are major drops in population, except for in countries that are war torn by Monsanto, so that they can do what you said, which is like produce more workers, like more drones for sure. But the educated people that actually have that farm or that family in these countries that have produced a place for them, that have legacy, those are all going away. And we're headed back to this orphan train situation where basically, I mean, pretty soon kids are so expensive that you're just going to sell them on trains, which is, the historical norm originally, that they just put orphans on a train, write in the newspaper that they're going to drop them off and you can pick up a bunch of new Tartarian foundlings. And I mean, like, it seems like we're also at a point, you just saw that article from Japan that they have baby incubator machines now so they can mass manufacture babies in cabbage pods. I mean, it's already happening everywhere. We're about to see a point where you won't be able to have your own babies.
First of all, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. Like I'm like regardless of your individual reasoning to reproduce, I'm saying like from the ruler's perspective, which is not us, like they need people to keep reproducing. I mean, if you play enough of these like strategy 4X video games, you're like, yeah, I need more people. I need a greater population. I got to produce more. It's like cancer, we're just a more advanced form of like bacteria.
F-Chat, Quake says, I hate the idea of having kids and using them as a sounding board. I think it's extremely important to be ready. Well put, Raph. Love you unconditionally. Tara mentioned gratitude tied closely to abundance. I feel like you need to have that. I mean, I agree in a sense, like you need to be ready in a sense, but do you feel like you'll ever be ready? Because so many people are waiting to have this sort of abstract idea of being ready. And like, what is your expectation of being ready, really?
Gratitude, being grateful, not feeling scarcity, because
so
again,
isn't that you right now? Like you're all about gratitude right now.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe that's the irony, right? Maybe like you're most ready to have a kid when you feel like you least want one. It's like life is pretty good right now with what I got. I'm just grateful for what I have. And you probably do less damage that way, right? Because it's when you have a kid, shit gets compromised and you're like, I don't care what I have to do. I got to feed my kid, even if that means like doing what I got to do,
I think that it's reasonable to want to have like some preparation for having kids. I don't think that you guys are wrong to say that, but at the same time, I feel like there's a reason why the most intelligent people that have the most resources seem to want the least kids, and then the most war-torn places are having the most kids. It seems pretty interesting to me when you're in Europe and you see like, you know, like Europeans are having like one kid or none, you know, and then the arriving population of people like to Sweden, right? Like Sweden's just going to be completely Arabic in 50 years, not even 100, because the locals aren't going to have enough kids. It's even if you have one kid or two kids, you can't compete with 6 to 8. So very quick. And if you have kids when you're 30 or 40, you can only have one or two kids. If you're having kids when you're like 17 to 18, you can have like 20 kids, right? Which is basically what a lot of people have been doing in history. So it seems pretty clear that it's people who think the way you do are going to be bred out of the gene pool anyway. So, I mean, is this just a fluke of this zeitgeist that we're not going to be able to? I mean, you won't survive.
Wasn't there a movie about this?
Totally, yeah, Idiocracy, but it's not just about idiots. I think it's about like the hypnotically controlled generally. It's you don't have to be stupid. There's a difference between being stupid or insane, or a difference between being unintelligent and stupid, which is that you can be miseducated instead of undereducated. And so there's a lot of people that are idiots, I think, that are, I mean, a lot of really, really smart people are idiots. I think like the whole pandemic kind of proved that. Like some of the smartest people were the most idiotic during the entire time. So maybe the idiocracy isn't so much about the primitive primal people that are having tons of kids. The idiots are the first parents in the scene of that movie that are unable to have kids because they waited too long and they were overthinking it. Maybe being an idiot might be just being surrounded in your own idiom and constantly thinking you know all these explanations and excuses that keep you from doing something. Whereas somebody who doesn't know any better accidentally has a kid and they're surprised how they figure out solutions, but life finds a way, right? That's to me what I'm noticing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like I would try to stop anything on a personal level. I mean, I think
How
either
prepared
way,
were your parents?
not
to have
prepared at
you?
all. My dad was like 21 and my mother was 18, and they had a really messy split. I heard all about it. It wasn't good.
Yeah, but you're one of the best people I know in the world. So how do you reconcile that?
I was
that you turned out.
It was because of my grandma. It was because my dad was so young that the bulk of my parenting went to my paternal grandmother, and she taught me a lot, like a shit ton of stuff I probably wasn't ready to hear back then. And yeah, that's why I always feel kind of different, because you're expected to be raised by your father or your mother or like the people that brought you into this world directly, not like, you know, one step above them, where she's probably like over this shit. She already raised like 4 kids. She's like, why do I have to fucking raise my grandson now? And she did. So I don't know.
I mean, is that anomalous? Isn't it mainly just anomalous in New York in the 80s and 90s?
Well, first of all,
historically, young parents had grandparents. So
well, it's anomalous. It's anomalous already, first off, in that my dad got me and my mother didn't, because my mother was apparently like either just that not wanting, because, you know, as an 18-year-old kid, I empathize. I don't blame her. You know, I was like, I totally get it. If I was a teenage girl and I had like this psychotic boyfriend at the time who I was into, but also really scared of, I would be like, yeah, I got to get out of here, which I totally get. So yeah, I mean,
you're gonna say Raf?
No, I think there's, even with all the preparation stuff or finding yourself, which I generally, in a sense, would advocate for, there's also something to be said, or a question to be raised, as to what extent actually discomfort or trauma, to a certain extent, if there is a capacity and environment to deal with it, may actually, I would want to say, breed genius or breed exceptional individuals. So even here, it's maybe not such a simple one coordinate system, but there's multiple things going on. And it may actually be that some of the greatest individuals, just like Andreas said, turn out from maybe not perfect circumstance. So I'm not even saying that there is a one size fits all solution to, I don't want to say the word with the Germans love to use, you know, in terms of breeding a population that may be best fits to bring civilization forward further. But yeah, I think there's many moving parts here. And in the end, I guess it's really what you make of it. But even in your case, I guess there was some type of support system ultimately, even though it may be not the most traditional thing, that then actually assisted in bringing forth something great, which is you, right?
And I'd argue that it actually is traditional in a lot of ways, because I don't think that we're living in a traditional society. We're living in a very unnatural society. And New York is one of the best examples. You're from New York. It's one of the least natural places in the world with the most alternate way of thinking, and it's completely outside of nature. But what you were doing, if a young grandparent exists, then they're part of the life of their kids. Now, if people are having kids at 17, 18 years old, and then by the time they're 40, their kids are already 20, then that means that they're becoming grandparents in their 40s and 50s. And if you're young enough to be a part of your kid's life, and you look around the world, that seems like the most natural and normal way things were. Then it was, as Hillary Clinton said, taking a village, right? It takes a village was her whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and it seems like that is naturally the case. And of course, to say that parents that don't know what they're doing are bad parents, that makes a certain amount of sense. You could say, well, these should really be better parents. And but who's perfect? Having terrible parents is probably some of the best lessons you can get. Some of my best lessons come from how my parents weren't perfect. Those are lessons that I learned how to not be from. I mean, and a big problem today is a parent will be divorced from another parent, and you have an absence of that parent. Like you're saying, you can't learn from their mistakes. And so all of a sudden, when your epigenetics are facing really similar feelings and problems that they did, you don't know how they reacted. So you don't know how to not act that way. And we repeat these problems way more, I think, if we don't have the negative lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And that's maybe that because like I had such a significant part of my upbringing missing in the form of my biological mother, that maybe that's what trained my mistake recognition engine outwards. Because I do that a lot, when it comes to recognizing other people's mistakes, because it's basically borrowing their experiences or essentially their brains, like how they reacted and how that panned out for them. There's like whole books written in that format. Like, this is a law of life that I'm trying to teach you. This is what happens when you follow the law, and this is what happens when you go against it. And
so you have solid grandma energy, right? Like, exactly. Like,
kind of, yeah, I would say so. I mean,
grandmother energy is some of the best energy, clearly.
Yeah, she kind of just did whatever she wanted, and that's what I grew up watching. Like, she probably had like a not ideal marriage, traditional Korean old school marriage with like some alcoholic grandpa, and he died earlier on, so she got to be a free woman, just raising her kids, and she dragged me around the world, like when she traveled to Thailand or Hong Kong. So like I could thank her for that.
So how much of your feelings that that wasn't right, or that it seems like you're like, even though I think you turned out better than a lot of people I know who had arguably way easier, maybe better, healthy sounding families. I know a lot of people that had 40-year-old wealthy parents in Silicon Valley that are, trust me, their kids are not all right. Like, there's a lot of people that are way worse off from unhealthy.
The thing was, like, I never felt like isolated because of that. Because I was born in like 91. By then, like divorce was already like well normalized,
Right. Yeah. It's become the maybe not natural, but it's become contemporaneously accepted. But
yeah.
Okay, what about success porn? So many people on the social media circuit that you see as, what do you look at and say, well, is there an example you can point to and say, well, that's the way it should be? Like, what's the way you want it to be? For it to, like, what have you seen in the world that you thought, okay, I wish I had that. That's the way it should have been,
I wish I had slightly bigger hands so I could play guitar a little better,
No, yeah, that would be cool, because Jimi Hendrix, he could do that thing where he like reached around with his thumb and he could touch the E fret. I get you on that. But I just meant, like, did you ever have friends whose dad was like a Boy Scout leader and like took them on boat rides, and you're like, oh, I wish I had that? Like, what kind of success porn did you see that makes you feel unable to have your family was inferior, in your opinion, to some other thing you saw, like the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses?
You know what? The feeling I had, and what didn't go down to families. I knew this. It's my boss, my current quasi boss. He's like in and out of prison. You could even like look him up. He's the guy who I met when I was like younger. I was like 23, 24, and he had an ankle monitor on his ankle, and he didn't really have anything because he just got out of prison. I watched him become like a multi-millionaire. He has like hundreds of millions after like all these years.
What's his name?
I don't know if I could say that online. I'll message it to you guys.
Yeah,
but,
send it over. I want to look him up right now.
Yeah. But he's pretty crazy. He's got a photo next to Trump. I already talked about him on the Exertive show before, but like, yeah, he's the one. He was like the success point in my life, but it wasn't because of his family. Because his family, it's so crazy. Because this guy's insane. Like, he's psychotic. He's just not. He's a sociopath. He doesn't treat people well. He treats people fairly, and if he doesn't like you, he'll fuck you over. So he's always treated me fairly. And I met his family, and they're normal people. They're like normal, just slightly Orthodox Jews, but they're just normal, homey people. They invite me over for dinner. They talk about, life with me. But with him, he's like the different one. So I think it's like not a family thing. I think it was just something about, it taught me about perspective. Like, different perspectives alter your perceptions. And his perspective just enabled him to go really far in some ways, but like really sabotage himself in others. So like, yeah, when I saw his success porn, it's like, at the same time, I was just I was so close to him. I was reminded why a person wouldn't want that life, Also, he took like fucking 30 milligrams of Adderall a day. That probably contributed to his fucking
speed, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like you're talking. I mean, the weight of expectation. I don't know if that was if it was our plan, but it seems like you made a pretty good illustration of the weight of expectation just there. I don't want to psychoanalyze you, but the idea of your mom leaving at like when you're a baby is a generational expectation collapse, right? Because she wasn't ready for the role that she felt was imposed upon her, right? And probably because she was taught like what she thought like a proper parent is from her mom, and her mom, your grandma, was probably like super sacrificing because she was young and she knew that she could retire from being that sacrificial character.
Also, I want to add, she was probably fucked up too, because she was into my dad, and my dad was like fucked up. He was like a very angry, violent young man in gang race war, New York City 80s,
Yeah, I think that's something we could
Your
go
city,
into as well.
baby.
Like, there's a lot we could go into on that, just in terms of like first generation Americans' expectations that you're going to become an American and then not being treated the way that sixth generation New English Anglo-Saxons were treated. You go to this white Protestant church or something and they look at you like you're not one of them and you're not allowed to have the same position as anyone else. And people want to pretend racism's not real. But bro, I don't know. Try speaking Korean in New York City in the 80s and tell me it's not real.
Yeah, precisely. And I think what my dad didn't see though is he always saw racial issues. He's like, oh, the blacks act like this, the Hispanics act like this, the Chinese act like this, the Indians act like this. And I was like, all right, Dad, what about, did you ever get into beef with any white people? And he was like, nah, not really. And I was like, maybe it's not a race thing. Maybe it's just a poor people thing, and I kind of like, he's like, yeah, maybe. He's like, yeah, you got a point.
But rich people have the worst problems, man. It's the rich neighborhoods where they have a bunch of kids buried in their basements. I'll tell you what. And if you pay off the cops, you can get away with things. Like, they're monitoring those neighborhoods better. That's all it is. It's a lot of people keep a lot of secrets in those rich neighborhoods, and it's true. I mean, it's rich people that can be pretty freaking crazy cannibals a lot of the time. But 100%. I don't know. Further on, just like, so your grandmother had to take more expectations because she already expected that she was done. Like, she had 4 kids. She'd lived her life. She's like 40, 50 years old. She's done. And all of a sudden she's going to have to keep doing that. And so you have to inherit resilience, right? Which are an extra layer of expectation, which leads to why you are like, you have to be disciplined. So what is the most disciplined thing someone can do? I don't know, becoming a sensei in a dojo. Like, it seems like the most order that anyone could possibly expect, and kind of a compensation of expectation. Because it's like, what is the most traditional thing that you can fix after your parents' generation abandoned tradition? Is you can save tradition, not just for yourself and your family, but for everyone else around you. As many people as possible. You can get on the lifeboat of the Titanic, right? I mean, it seems like,
for me personally, like, you got to understand, as an Asian, you're going to have expectations on you, period. That's just the way they roll. And I was already a disappointment in a lot of ways. Like, I'm not a fucking lawyer or a doctor. I didn't even go to college. I'm a high school dropout. And so, I'm like the kind of person individually where discipline clearly or upholding tradition doesn't really inherently mean much to me. But I think that what might make me seem disciplined incredibly or traditionalist in a lot of sense is, if there's one thing I learned from my upbringing how to do without even realizing that's what I was learning, it's just how to show up. You know, because like there were so many times when I didn't want to go to karate class, when I didn't want to go to piano class as a little kid. But then, you know, my grandmother insisted, and she was like, she just forced me without telling me why I should. She just forced me into it and scolded me when I didn't want to go. So like all that taught me was, if I show up, it's not going to kill me. It might suck, but it's not going to kill me. Now, fast forward to adult life. And then I sign up for a class. You know, a lot of people sign up for a lot of things as a self-directed adult, but they fall off real quick because they lose that. They don't really they don't see themselves as a person who keeps showing up to something when it stops being as fun as the beginning. But that's something I was always good at, because like you know, by default, like I was forced to go through things even if they weren't always great. So for sword class, it was a no-brainer. You know, like even if it seemed like, you know, not, I was too lazy, or maybe just didn't seem like I was into it at the time, I just showed up anyway. So that really is like most of it. If you just fucking show up, you know, just like for this podcast, like, you know, it's not like I need to really get anything out of it, but I have faith that if I just show up, you know, if you build it, they will come.
So what's the difference between that and becoming and just showing up for fatherhood? Like, you know, I feel like
There is no difference. You know, like I said, I think that's really what it is. And you show up the best when you're grateful. You know, when you're not in scarcity mode, when you're not in survival mode, you show up the best version when you're like already grateful. Like, you know, if you're on a date with your future wife and mother of your child, you at least want to show up like grateful, not like showing up with some deep-seated scarcity within you, right?
but you're really good at becoming grateful for any circumstance, right? You can be grateful for being hungry, or grateful for being tired, or grateful for the opportunity to be in traffic and think to yourself. That's like the way you are, right? That's what your whole
I wasn't always
motives
like
are.
that. Something just
But you are
happened.
now. Some woman trapped this man. All I'm saying right now, get this boy pregnant, make him a father. That's
Nah,
all I'm
chill.
saying. Right
Nah. I don't know. There's really just no guarantees, you know. You just gotta be grateful for what we're given. Play with the cards we're dealt.
All right, I'm sorry for like pushing on the psychoanalysis of Chris.
No, it's okay. I invite it. I really just
Sorry
stopped
for pushing
having
on the
shit to hide.
pregnancy.
Yo, it's because
Yeah.
when you come out of like foster care, all your secrets and shit, all your life experiences get wrung out of you to the point where like everything I've told you is probably on record already somewhere. You know, it's probably in some government file. It's whatever. What the fuck do I care?
I mean, think again, like, dude, watch this video on like the Bolshevik family commune, and even like the kibbutzes at the end, the idea of, you know, being in a foster program. It's really not that different than people realize. Like everyone's like, oh man, thank God we don't live in communist Russia. Back to the foster care program. I mean, really, we're kind of living in that world. And yeah, the transparency, maybe it's an interesting thing how it affects people. The more we think about it, like the more you should be grateful. Everyone else around you should be grateful for like what they have, but we got to step it up as a people, I feel like. All right, but I want to push on Jordan a bit. Jordan, similarly, I know you have like, you know, you didn't come from a Bill Gates's transgendering background. You've got a pretty cool grandpa, but your family had a lot of roughness. I know you don't have to push as hard as you want, but you want to talk about like what you went through, man? Because you came out pretty stable, and what you do is help people everywhere you go. Basically, the way I know Jordan is because he just reached out to see how he could help me, you know?
I mean, my parents also split when I was pretty young. They did get back together for a little bit, but a few years after that, they did permanently split again. I did spend most of the time with my mother, who I felt was the one showing me the most love and trying to teach me the most and wanted the most out of me. My dad was really a, you know, cut your hair kind of guy. Like, you know, anything I wanted to do, like get a piercing or grow my hair out, or, I mean, I used to have big stretchers in my ears that really pissed him off. But yeah, he was the typical father that with something up, you know, stick up his ass, and he always kind of had something to get upset about, and very rarely shared, you know, his pride in being a father, his pride, you know, his pride in me or anything like that. But I feel like I was getting that from my mom. I still do. So I think me becoming who I am, a lot of it, I think, comes from my mom, and to an extent, my grandparents and some other family, but the majority, the high majority of my mother, and how she raised me. I was also always a social person, so I always kind of learned social cues uh, and stuff like that. I'd say both parents taught me. If there's anything my dad did teach me, he did teach me to, be a social person. Look someone in the eye and shake their hand and introduce yourself to them. And I think that's something that's it's so simple, but I feel like a lot of people don't get that these days. A lot of people can't even. A lot of guys and girls looking for husbands and wives or girlfriends and boyfriends, they can't even look each other in the eye anymore. So I'd say that's something that helped, the social aspect of just taking it in. And I'd say also the media and the content, and even like to an extent people that I would hang around, they were never, my mom never really censored me from stuff. If there was something, I think I got caught maybe one time when I was too young to be looking at porn, and she's just like, "What's this dirty stuff?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's just an ad, it just popped up. I don't know what's going on. I don't know." Yeah, she was never a helicopter mom, and censoring me like that. So I was able to take in what I wanted to take in, and as a curious person, it allowed me to take in a lot of different things. So I think that's important. Like, you do hear about a lot of people, although I do think, even JD Vance says it these days, like, people like to hang on to that thing where it's like, oh yeah, I grew up, I had it tough. I had it so tough as a kid, but obviously a lot of people still make it out of these tough situations. So it's not all about the impact of your parents, I'd say. I think it's just a lot on the environments and the people around you. You just got to hope that the people that do have influence over you directly are decently good people, and you just hope that your mind isn't, you don't have blinders on, so you can't be taking in, a lot of real information that's out there. I've woken up a lot over the past years before COVID, so I can't say that I was living without any blinders back then, but I felt like I was someone who was always willing to ask how things work and why do people act that way, and why it's important not to act that way or to act that way. So yeah, I'd say it's not all parents. It's just, I'd say a lot of it's the environment, the people that are around you, and how you take that stuff in.
How much do you want to be a parent, someday?
I think I'd really like to be a parent, but I was really grabbing on to what I think Raphael was saying about how, like, at what point have you learned enough, and at what point do you feel you're good enough where it's like, okay, having a child is something where I can actually pass something on to them, right? So I don't feel like I'm at that stage yet. I'm still pretty young, but I just don't think I'm at that stage yet.
So a major thing with your dad was that he wanted you to conform to expectations,
yeah,
and withheld love or withheld pride, withheld recognition. So like, you have a life. You're a YouTuber. I don't know, like, takes one to know one. Maybe podcasting is part of like a search for recognition, like to sort of like to in the world, from a place that your family doesn't provide it. I don't know if you've seen my Vice special, but how do you feel about that? Do you feel like part of it's that, you want recognition that you're doing all right, that you're like someone to tell you like, hey man, like because like, I'll tell you, you're a great guy. Like, do you feel like you need to hear that though sometimes because you didn't hear
nesting instincts?
I don't feel like I crave it, but I mean, yeah, I mean, sure, it feels good. I think it'd be nice. I think it would be nice if certain people, I guess, like my dad, if he were to listen to it and say, "Oh, you know, I heard that and it was really good," and you know,
It would affect you differently.
yeah, it
have
would
its
affect
own
me a
way
little
to it.
differently, for sure, just
May
because
I
there's that
ask?
bond, right?
So maybe I'm just projecting, maybe this is part of my own story, maybe, but I mean, do you get anyone of your family to ever listen to anything you're publishing? I certainly don't. At the same time, I would claim, maybe it's correct or not, that for me, it's really not so much about, oh, you're so great, this is a great thing you did, oh, thanks, this is the recognition I never got from my dad. For me, at least in my mind, it's really just like, okay, I believe, I'm crazy enough to believe, I learned and collated enough that I can put something out that actually may help and assist someone. And similarly, you don't have to go as far as fostering anyone, but simply the idea of sharing, how would you call that, this type of support or insight, energy, because there's enough children, I would think, that desperately need a lot of attention, which they're not getting from the existing systems. So even without adopting someone, I think there's plenty of things one can do and share to actually assist in quote unquote raising children or helping, you know, young adults, so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely a big part of why I started the podcast and why I'm restarting the podcast and why I want to start making more content and stuff is to teach, to learn and teach. I kind of want it to be almost like my own learning journey, right? So yeah, you nailed that on the head, my friend, for sure.
Well, you're trying to help people, you know, like that's the thing I've noticed about you ever since I met you. Like you're just trying to help people, and like you will tell people that, like you told me that you appreciated the stuff I did, like you know that you appreciated the stuff you've heard, right? And that you just want to be helpful.
Absolutely.
So like, do you feel like even though your dad wasn't able to be giving you the recognition that you probably could have used as a kid, that might have helped in some ways, that like if you had a kid, that you would be able to be like, hey son, I'm proud of you? Do you think you could do that? Do you think you would?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I've learned so much. I feel like I've learned so much from what my mom did and what my dad didn't do, to put that together to be a pretty good blueprint for parenting and raising it.
So I mean, like what else? So you were saying earlier though, like about what you need to learn in order to be a good parent. And so I'm wondering if you can do that, the thing that you didn't get as a kid and everything else you were able to get, what else do you need? Don't you feel like that's kind of the thing? That was the thing you needed and that you got it now?
I think it's important, and it might not be an age thing. I just think maybe it's an age thing for most people because of, you know, not everyone grows up as quick as everyone else. But I feel that if you can focus on the upbringing of a child and being actively aware of, you know, what could be good and what may be harmful for them to take in mentally, physically, verbally, or any which way, I think that's a key part. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I were just to have a baby tomorrow, I mean, I'd be very nervous, but I mean, I feel like I'm someone who has their head on their shoulders enough to that I would be confident enough to do it, even if it would be nerve-wracking.
Some woman trapped this man. We need a Canadian woman in the audience to trap this man. I think we're winning here. I think there's something to this. All right. I'm sorry to push it on. This is fun because we turned
No, man, that's cool.
A men's psychology psychoanalysis deep dive. Let's audit Raph. Raph, what about you, bro? You want to talk about your life? You into it?
What do you want to know?
Well, you know, like talk about your
Where do your parents think you really are right now?
Yeah, bro.
A good question. Well, one thing actually I want to say, so maybe there's actually really some parallels between me and you, Jordan, in terms of many things I learned from my mom that I consider very positive, many things I learned from my dad that I'd rather not do, my biological dad, that is to say. The one thing about the whole expectations, at least for me, that was a big thing. I'm not sure. I'm not in a traditionally, I want to say, Korean family or something like that, where you would have this like heavy type of expectation set. But still, there were some things. Oh, just like you said, oh, you could be a lawyer, you could be this and that. And I have to say, and maybe it's also due to the environment, like Andreas said, Austria is a pretty socialist country where even if you don't do anything, you still get supported. But for me, it was actually pretty important to divest myself of any expectation at all, and then really trying to find how do I want to be, how do I want to treat myself and others, and then what do I expect of myself, or simply what do I gravitate to. Maybe this is a very Nietzschean high level Maslow pyramid, eye of the pyramid type thinking, maybe, but for me that was really important, and in the end ultimately may even work out, and who knows, in the end maybe even my mom can be proud of me or whatever. And certainly you meet people along the way that are like, oh well, actually I appreciate you and I think you're amazing, not for the fact that you have conformed to all of these expectations, but for the fact that you actually took the time to try to or continue to develop what you want to be yourself. And then of course it is incredibly amazing when someone even in the slightest way can recognize that effort, or maybe even just that core that you have brought with you. Because oftentimes I'm also wondering, are we really developing something out of ourselves, or is it only that we are removing all the excess conditioning that we almost cannot escape in this society, and then come back again to the natural qualities and the natural strength that maybe we were even in some way incarnated with? This is one of the things I'm wondering about.
Yo, this is gonna sound fucked up, but you describing that makes me think like the only good example on film, like truly good example of parenting, was in that
Bosnians on mopeds. Sorry, go ahead.
was that movie Hannah, about like the escaped CIA little girl asset. Yeah. That's good parenting. You know, just keep them completely isolated, teach them how to kill everything, and then just let them loose in the world.
It's a strategy. I don't know, man. There's something to it. I don't know. I think I don't know, Raph, if you don't want to talk too much more about it, but like it is interesting knowing Raph at this point. Like your dad is such a materialist, which I think makes you far less of a materialist. And you know, generally speaking, you're not obsessed over like, you don't want a Lexus, you know, you don't care. And I think your dad really does. I think your dad really wants like a Mercedes to feel like.
Gotta have a foreign car.
The real issue is then, even if you can be materialist, and actually I'm learning to get more into grips with materiality. I love what you said earlier, Chris, in terms of, I mean, I try not to watch too shitty movies. I can't stand that. But even just considering how close, especially if we consider that this life may only be a blink of an eye within God's mind or whatever it is, then it is interesting that we do have the physical material world here. And then also I want to say, anybody, especially who has some sort of rooted spirituality and truly does the best to be a decent individual and develop true morality and ethics and all of that, I think those actually are the individuals who should have the handle on the material world as well. How much of a different world would we have if we wouldn't allow only the psychopaths to do it, because we're like, oh, whatever, you know, hands off. But actually see like how close can we get to it, especially because we try to treat people decently. We try to do something that is helpful to others. I think those are the individuals who actually should be in charge. That would be quite an interesting world to me.
Yeah, but then after they're put in charge, they become like the old guys.
Is it really always the case? Yeah.
I don't know if it's always. I was just following stupid platitudinal archetypes. You know.
You're right.
Or that's their protection. That's a psychopath protection mechanism. So you don't even try.
Maybe
I'm sure there are enough medium and small businesses. At least it's what I always hear, where you have great bosses that really take great care, but the ones you hear the most of is just the crazy, you know, super high-powered conglomerates who anyhow only have CEO actors in front of them that may just as well be TV characters anyways.
Yeah,
I think you look at companies that get taken over, because like a company is a soulless body. It's a legal body without a soul. And so energies and demons like Venture Rockefeller or BlackRock or whatever, they go into like the spirit into those corporations. This is how a corporation, usually a small company, gets big enough, it gets taken by the board and then handed to a new CEO who is a psychopath, and it replaces them. So you don't get to, they don't survive in that kind of world. But that's because there's an inversion of nature in civilization. I'm so convinced that your life is different because you grew up in New York City than if you grew up in the woods. And the same thing for Raf, you know, like growing up in Vienna is not growing up in nature. Like nature is so different. And like the idea that you're saying, like in the old days, women crave security and that men crave freedom. Like, isn't that really sounding reversed here? Because it sounds like the big scare for you guys is that as men, you want to have security for those kids. And the men and the women are all about freedom. This is the feminist generation. Women want freedom, right? They want freedom to live their lives. This is the pro-choice, you know, freedom thing. So like, how far has nature been divorced from our civilized reality, right?
You know what's fucked up? Like, and Raf said, alluded to the fact that things would be better if like more spiritually rooted people were like in charge. But you know, that's, I guess, maybe more idealistic. But in reality, what's probably going to happen is just like how an HR department was introduced to every corporation, now you're going to have a spirituality department. You know, so it's like, are you feeling holistically out of balance, and is it affecting your productivity? Well, visit our resident shaman or a resident guru, and then they will set you back to. Yeah,
Apple did that. Scott. Oh man, what's his name again? Oh man, Scott Foreman? No. Apple Scott. Who? I forget the name. Hold on, you go. I'll talk about it. No, Forstall. Scott Forstall. Scott Forstall. Okay, sorry, I'm screaming. Scott Forstall was the dude who worked for Apple who pushed this idea of never leave for holidays. On Christmas, be at work. Miss your kids' birthdays. He was constantly overworked all the time, and he made Apple kind of what it was originally when he was a young guy. You know, he just worked all the time and focused on working all the time, and didn't, you know, he sacrificed everything. And Apple made him go on vacations, and he would like work the whole trip. Like he'd be like, all right, well, I guess I rewrote iMovie while I was in the Caribbean because I had all these videos of this like snorkel trip you guys made me go on. But they didn't ever, you know, they started pushing this idea of having free time or elective time to have your own time to do things at these companies. Google has a thing where you take 20% of your time.
I'm sorry. I just want to say this comment. The people in charge literally do rituals and whatever. What the fuck are you? I think that's like so true, though. I completely failed to recognize that. Like Donald Trump, for example, is like a level 100 warlock. You know, he probably is schooled on some serious magic, you know?
This is true. Yeah. I feel like millionaires don't do astrology because billionaires do astrology. That's probably true to an extent. And that's also part of like the difference between the unnatural system of civilization, because you know, in nature, you go out and you try to find a place where you can garden and farm and you can make some capital gains. But in civilization, you're in a feudal serfdom where there's like centralization of wealth, which leads to, you know, inbreeding and like artificial intelligence. Education is totally this artificial kind of intelligence that you didn't just learn in nature. You're being programmed upon lessons that are recorded to an extent. I mean, there's constantly pressure, also pressure to emulate the other, which is what social media magnifies and scales to a major extent, which is why you have younger and younger girls trying to become more and more whorish OnlyFans models, and boys are trying all to become the most interesting social media video game YouTuber that they can twitch about. I mean, everyone's just kind of memeing themselves into being like everyone else and having no uniqueness anymore.
Well, it's service to self. I think it's really also like the direction or your ratio of energy. Like there's your capacity for energy, which gets milked daily because they need that for raw working labor. But then if you manage to cultivate it with positive patterns in your life, then it's going to go one or the other way, service to self and service to others. And I guess it's really hard not to go over in one side more than the other, like too much service to self, too much service to others. What was Raf saying?
The link in private chat. I'm gonna open it up here. One
Yeah,
second.
because someone made this comment and I was like, well, I'm using GNOME. I want to know if that's true. You know, GNOME is one of the UI systems for Linux, and Well, they had some issues in between. I loved using version 2.0, I think. And now the new GNOME shell actually, I think, is pretty great, somewhat customized. For me, it works very well. Been using it for years now. So actually, he's correct in our comment. GNOME Foundation hires professional shaman as new executive director. So there we go.
Yeah, I also use GNOME. My stack is Arch Linux with GNOME, and then I use Zorg, and then I use a Windows tiling manager, i3. I don't know. I'm just nerding out over Linux shit.
Yeah, that's super nerdy. I'm just using the regular GNOME shell, yeah, but that's cool.
I mean, I was just rebuilding an old laptop, and I was like, I can't fucking run Windows on this thing. Like, so I just did the next best thing.
Well, what does anyone want to run Windows on? As soon as they had these forced updates, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna touch this anymore, because I mean, maybe that's somewhat of a how should I say, techno-racist view, but I want my computer to do what I tell it to, and not whatever CEO says, oh, now you have to install this or that. That completely drives me insane.
Yeah, fun stuff. I don't even know how, I feel like it's definitely a hobby, because programming feels more and more redundant by the day. I mean, it's never going to fully be like obsolete. You're going to need some higher.
Dude, with AI, you can vibe code. You could just make a GitHub and you start taking ideas, fork them, and then send the code that you like to ChatGPT or to DeepSeek and ask it to like rewrite it, in a different way. I used to take Vocaloid when it was in Japanese, Google Translate it, and then upload to GitHub the English like code for it. There's always little things you can do to hack. Steve Jobs ayahuasca? Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I just hope if you cultivate, for anyone listening, if you cultivate a lot of that energy or that mana or that chi or whatever you want to call it, that mojo, that willpower, if you cultivate like large pools of it, hopefully you don't spiral out with it and go full schizo or self-destruct mode like Jesus did. I mean, for a good cause, I guess, but still, I wouldn't want that.
Like Jesus self-destructed? Elaborate. That's a good one.
Okay, well, my real lens that I view this through is the more godly, divine virtues you embody, the more of a capacity you need to hold it. Because like if you fully embody God, you just can't exist in the material world. You get vaporized. I mean, I give this as an example. Like one of the godly virtues is gratitude, right? So it's gratitude is very important. I talk about it all the time. But you got to be like strong to embody more gratitude. For example, like let's say you get jumped, you can't be getting stomped out while saying like thank you, thank you, thank you. You got to be able to at some point like contain all of that virtue, and to be able to like maintain it without completely evaporating from the material world in some form or another, whether it's through getting stabbed and having to forgive your attacker, or whether it means like making the ultimate sacrifice for all of humanity, I guess.
Careful around DeepSeek if you value your personal wealth and organs. I mean, you know what? If you think that Chinese people are taking organs, you should really look at the organ card documentaries in the United States. Be careful in Arizona, all right? Flagstaff is not what you think it is. I'm just saying. But okay, maybe we should rebuild the future then, because it seems like we have this model for the past. Nietzsche talked about, right? The Christian model is like the feminine sacrifice model. And that men are, copying this dude that they don't even know what happened from his pubescent years. You're not allowed to know about Jesus when he was going through puberty, because pretty sure that was a wild ride. I am God, mom and dad. I am God. Like that could probably be.
We know.
Yeah,
God,
right?
we know.
And I mean, but that's not the lessons you get. You don't get to learn the lessons of the life of Christ. You get to learn about like when he was so tired of it that at 33, he like freaks out, gets a whip, starts knocking over things in temples and gets killed for it, politically assassinated. I mean, and every kid's supposed to sacrifice themselves. Like men are taught that this feminine archetype of sacrifice, right? Like you should be willing to die rather than like the amount of effort it takes to live. I think there's something to that. Like, I don't think Jesus really was supposed to die. He didn't really ask, like he wasn't like, God, I'm really excited for this coming Thursday. It's going to be really great when they whip the crap out of me and then they set me up for death. That's not the verse in Gethsemane when he's like, hey, God, is there another way? Because like, Dad, I don't really want to do this.
Dude, every time this narrative comes up, whether it's through you or through TV shows like The Chosen, I'm always reminded I'm in my 33rd year now. Like I'm 33, turning 34 this month. But like, I'm like, I guess, a part of me did kind of die this year. I'd say with full certainty that after this year, I just think I've lost all motivation to do negative shit to other people. Like, even if it means like I'll show them, I'll become really successful at, like, fuck it, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm done. Like, you guys, everyone, I just hope you all have a good and peaceful path, and that's really all I could wish for. Like, honestly, because that's what I want for myself.
Do you ever read Ram Dass? Are you a fan of the New Yorker Ram Dass, who was part of the electric Kool-Aid acid tests and Timothy Leary's MK Ultra? But he was all about, he wrote that book, Be Here Now, and he talks all about ego death and the importance of ego death. The idea that, you know, you need to let because a lot of people would take drugs in the 60s and they thought they were dead because their body was like, clearly this only happens when you die. I shouldn't be going through this. And your body thinks it's dying. Your mind thinks your body's dying. And then you die, but then you come back, you wake up again. So this ego death thing became really interesting to him as a psychology student. He's like, well, maybe getting rid of like the rigid idea of the I and understanding that you're part of this cycle and that you're part of this bigger thing. Maybe that's maybe that death that you had is actually like a healthy thing because you still are here, but the I is gone.
Yep. It's just the process now. It's just life happening through me, whatever.
So what do you think about, okay, so like we talked about the past, we talked about the present, we could talk about the future. Like, can we rebuild the future then? Like, if you had kids, what would you teach them? How would you redefine success? How would you redefine success and security, really, from the way you were like worrying about it as a child and expectations?
Well, now I feel more comfortable than I did, say, 5 years ago, because I would have felt less comfortable teaching a kid that I couldn't uphold myself. Like, you know, and, you know, I could go like pretty deep. Like, if I told my kid, like my son, hypothetically, I would rather you didn't consume internet pornography because it's bad for you, not for any moral reasons. And it would be bad if my kid could just turn around and say, but you do it, dad. And at least, like, you know, shit like that. Like, if you could back what you push, I think that puts you in a better position, even if it's to your own kids. Like, you shouldn't smoke cigarettes, dad. Well, leave me the fuck alone. You know, there's all this other shit that I don't do.
Modeling. You think modeling's key? All right. Yeah. But like, in terms of like rigid like measures of success, like in terms of your mother craving freedom or your dad craving security in a system that's exploding, would you feel like you would teach a kid a different definition of success or security?
Well, that's what I would hope to model for my kid, is to show them that you know, whether it's I have to spell it out for them or show them through my own way of life, I would try to express that you can't control what happens to you. You can only control how you respond. And that extends to them too. Like, I honestly, kid, I can't control you. You know, it would be easier if I could, but I can't. I could only control how I respond to you. And that's the best I could do, even as a parent, you know, that you're stuck with forever.
I was just, I told my mom the other day that I made this new video because she sent me this message saying like, I hope you're able to do something, you know, valuable or constructive, you know, while you're there, because she doesn't really see anything I do as too constructive. It's like, well, maybe you should see this new video, which I think I made like more mainstream than I should have. I don't know. Like I could have made it way more about Tartaria and conspiracies. And I mean, it's pretty much like anybody could watch this. It could be on PBS and you could call it like a mainstream documentary. Sure, it talks about orphan trains to an extent, but it's, you know, it's like accepted history that you would learn in a university of Marx. Like it's not outside the mainstream. And I kind of feel like maybe that's my own failing for trying to make it something that is appealing. And so my mom said, I have no bandwidth for it. And I was like, you should watch it and then like see what you think. She said, I have no bandwidth for it. And I realized what she meant. So I was like, well, we have like gigabit. Oh, psychologically you have no bandwidth.
That's good verbiage, honestly.
Is that what she meant?
Yeah, she totally meant psychologically, because we have I made sure I got them their internet.
It's not in their wavelength, you know.
Yeah,
it's not in their frequency.
That's deep.
Yeah,
man. Mama goes.
Yeah,
deep.
yeah. I respect my mom. I mean, you know, you don't have to always agree with everything someone says to respect them. I think that's like an important lesson. Yeah. But it's interesting to me because it's like, you know, no matter what you do, like the same, no matter what I do, like trying to meet people where they're at. Like it's not something you can always do with like the past. But with the future, there's so much opportunity. There's so much hope in the future that you can change things that, you know, like security doesn't have to represent money or even stability. It might just mean like being in a healthy enough place to grow and change. You know,
like I mean, some of the most inspiring stories is always that like recovered drug addict is like, yeah, I was giving hand jobs for some crack cocaine at the back of a Wendy's by the dumpster, and look at me now. I own 3 houses, 2 McDonald's. Like
I'm
I'm
only
living the dream.
$60,000 in debt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I personally love that shit. That's why I like reality shows. I mean, the good reality shows, because I think good reality shows follow a positive formula, where it's you take a person who's fucked up, who doesn't know they're fucked up, then you put them in a situation that forces them to see that they're fucked up, and then you watch them try to not be fucked up. And I think that's beautiful because that's like the meaning of life. And then you have
Well,
like
see-
shows like Jersey Shore, which is just bad, you know? Like,
yeah, the situation.
yeah.
Okay, all right. In terms of other things that we would redefine and we would change, like let's say you had a daughter, not a son. Let's say you had a daughter and like she was, you worry about your grandmother and your mother and you're thinking about freedom, right? Because your mother craved freedom. Like, how would you redefine freedom? Would you like, you know, how would you look at freedom as something that you could offer that they could have an attainable freedom that allowed them to like exist in the world, still be a parent someday themselves, or continue the cycle of life and being a part of it?
I mean, the real shackles is it's a biological clock, right? I mean, the greatest tragedy is that like there's only a certain window of time that a female woman can only, reproduce in. And I guess like there's also the societal conditioning behind that, saying, "Oh, time's running out, time's running out," and like maybe one day out of the blue, like that's tolerable. But if it's like every single fucking day in your emails through ads and everything you watch, and your mom and your grandma and your coworkers and your friends, like yeah, it's a different story. It's probably crushing.
I'd understand this to be a huge pressure, but isn't there, just to throw a wrench in there, isn't there technically a way to circumvent that nowadays with all the amazing transhumanist in vitro fertilization technologies we have?
Maybe someday, but like, I mean, I think there's still, if we're talking about the more you can change society, the more that you can make it less natural. I wondered, like, do you think that that's the right way to go? Is we should just completely fight against
No.
nature? Which would be ironic from you, bro.
Man, I don't know. I mean, I like this goes back to gratitude. I remember I got into an argument with a trans person in APM, and like I never once really got into the gender discourse. I never fucking gave a shit. But then like, I would share my interests, and then they were like, everything you're into is so male. Like you like exercise and cars and shit. And I'm like, yeah, I'm thankful for the male body that God gave me. Sorry, you can't say the same. It's like, it just boils down to gratitude. It could really save you from a lot of shit. Just be thankful for what you truly have, even your body. Then you'll start treating it a lot better.
I mean, like, how would you want to raise your daughter so that she could be different than your mother in terms of like, I mean, one of the things I noticed in your life is that you don't just define freedom as being able to do anything you want necessarily, but it's like, the more responsibilities and more obligations that you take up, like the more freedom you seem to have more freedom because you're a sensei and because you have things you have to do in the week, and that you're able to do things you're able to explore, go deeper into the things that you can do, right?
Well, personally, I define freedom as being free from my own bad habits, being free from like my own bad, shitty thoughts and my own beliefs that keep me in negative feedback loops. That to me is my prison. It's nothing to do with my external reality, because to be honest, I have a lot more materially than my grandmother did when she came to this country. That's never going to change. So, knowing that's the case, the only thing that's really getting in the way, that only ever got in my way, was me. So to me, freedom is conquering those things. And since I focus on that and put a lot of my energy into that, maybe that might seem like freedom to other people, how they know freedom, which is the ability to do whatever the fuck they want to anyone whenever they want. I'm like, yeah, have fun with that. It's going to catch up with you, until they don't, because they don't realize that they're still caught in their own shackles of their own bad habits, their own bad tendencies, and their own antisocial behavior. If you fix your own bad shit, you'll find you have a lot more time to do a lot more things that you never knew you had the time to do.
Legit. Jordan, in terms of freedom and also like companionship, because similarly your parents divorced, and how do you think that affects your expectations for a relationship, and what do you think are qualities that are necessary to like make a relationship work?
Jeez. I mean, Trust would be
This will
big.
be on the test, bro.
Trust would be big. Mutual trust between the two parties, as well as mutual understanding between the two parties. Just a general. I mean, you want to have a general comfort with that person. I mean, that, and a lot of these things go hand in hand, I think, with being comfortable with each other and being able to trust one another. Respect. You want to respect that person, and you want that person to respect you. Yeah, I think it's when you get to that stage, I think you both got to understand that you got to look at it from a team game perspective, where we're both on the same team now. So let's act like it, right? Let's share our cards and mentally, and mentally, as well as share your baggage. And I think both parties should be able to accept each other, knowing what the baggage is, what's involved. Radical acceptance, exactly. Acceptance in many different facets, I'd say. Yeah.
What about like in terms of recognition? Do you feel like your dad treated your mom in a way like similar to you in terms of having a hard time like recognizing her role or function or value in the relationship, or as a mother or as a wife?
I'm sorry. What's the question?
Like, did the way your dad treated you and didn't give you like recognition as a son, do you think like he did the same thing for your mother, for his wife?
I'd say so. Yeah. I don't know if that's just the type of person he was or is, or if we weren't just good enough, or I don't know what it could have been, right? But yeah, I'd say so for sure.
So yeah, recognition of like the values that people provide each other and how to work together. Like, so team building in a lot of ways is a major thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like I said, you should look at it from the perspective it's like a team sport. Whether you're raising a child or not, you're raising a relationship together now at that point. So I think it's very key, very key.
Yeah, because you're also make each other vulnerable. So if you don't make each other stronger as well to fill in the gaps, then
what
good.
Are we doing here?
I mean,
Not
if
joking,
you
your parents don't give me recognition, I'm finally okay with that. Yeah, I think that's a huge part of like learning how to break the cycle. Go ahead, Chris.
Vulnerable. Oh yeah. Even like some of the most powerful people, like with the staunchest ideals, like they will buckle real quick. Like if some terrorist cell or some bad actors steal their kid on their way to school or something, like that's why that's just one example of why in families especially, like you have to lean on each other, because ultimately you are each other's weakness too.
Elaborate. How are you each other's weakness?
I mean, all right, if you didn't have kids, like no bad people could steal your kids and threaten you to do whatever they wanted, like go rob this bank, go kill this person, or your kid dies, which happens a lot, especially like in the world of like spooks and cartel operators. And I mean, I'm not trying to be alarmist. I'm just saying,
No, but like having kids is having skin in the game.
Yeah, pretty much. Which I'm not saying it's not worth it. It's obviously what people wouldn't be doing if it wasn't worth it, but just something to consider, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that's also something that, I have friends who became parents, and afterwards it changed so much. Like Adam used to not think the way he does now that he's a parent. He basically, I mean, a lot of people feel like you should have to have kids to even vote, because like if you're gonna even like care about where the world's going in the future, it should be something that isn't just affecting you for the next 4 years, but like long-term vision of how you want the world to be in the future.
Although I want to say it's kind of sad to consider that the only way you would think long-term is if you have children on your own. And again, maybe it's because I played so many video games or whatever it is, or some spiritual figment of my imagination. But I very much care about that, regardless of whether I have children on my own. Even just having peers, knowing that there is individuals that are younger than me, or even not younger. It doesn't matter. Just knowing that there's other people makes me interested in having a civilizatory progress in some way, shape, or form. I think it's kind of sad if it like needs to be your own genetics. That's always this thing like, oh, it's my own child, now I care. There's so many children to care about anyways that they're gonna have a good life. Why should it be any less relevant to me only because they're not blood related? I don't really or fully get that.
You sound like a Bolshevik. No, I'm just kidding. But
Here we go.
well, I mean, it's important. I agree, but I feel like the games that did that for me, because similarly, I like played Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, and the way your character, darker light side points influence your team, your ship team, and you're like, wow, like I really, if I do this, it's gonna persuade the choices made by the team of my ship, right? And so your ship ends up being that. But in a lot of ways, even like affecting other people, like affecting the Exertus verse, that is kind of affecting a family in a lot of ways. So there's a truth to that, like in terms of what you choose to do. There's something kind of neat about continuing the cycle of life, though. I think someone said this earlier in the chat. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not. I mean, I don't know what verse you got that from, bro, but Make America Green Again. I would like I'd
Check your pot, dude. Check your pot.
I would agree with that.
We're all just different versions of each other, man. Everyone's just the same soul living out different lives in different bodies, even your kids and your parents and your worst enemy and your best friend.
I was thinking, I was just asking if I was making sure Raph didn't want to say something first. Okay, so we talked about breaking the cycles then. So like in terms of the future, a big part of it's breaking cycles. Again, I've been thinking about this since the Bolshevik video. Like it's all about the Soviet 1920s revolution is all about breaking cycles of norms of nature. We have machines to do it now. We have lights to be awake at night. How these things that we don't even realize affect us. Like there's a good documentary on how people used to wake up in the middle of the night because it was dark out and they had a couple hours there because they went to bed so early in the wintertime because the sun would go down in Northern Europe at like 4 or 5 in the evening. And so you'd wake up at like midnight until like 2 or 3 in the morning and you'd have this chill time. So everyone would like basically be meditating. They'd have like a couple hours there in the dark. They didn't want to waste candlelight because it's expensive. Just kind of thinking and musing and looking at the stars and thinking. And that's completely gone now. And people are talking about fatigue and exhaustion and everything. A big part of that comes from staying up super late because we don't follow the trends of nature, right? So we broke all these cycles, and a lot of those probably broke us as a people. But are there cycles now that you look at from, we're 100 years deep from the 1920s into the 2020s? Are there what are some other, people talk about breaking the cycle of violence, right? What are the other cycles that are violent to our psychology? What are some other things that we need to break in terms of recognition or gratitude and consciousness? Like what are other cycles we need to change for the future?
Well, I would like you to pull up things like, the spiral dynamics or your chakra points, like the Kundalini rising through the gates and all that shit. Because each one is pretty much representative of like a certain negative cycle or a layer of the cycle that you're breaking past, right? Spiral dynamics is a good one because, at the very bottom is like most blocked by like fear of survival, or fear of death, I should say. And if you manage to get your material shit sorted out and not have to worry about getting eaten every day, then you can move on to the next cycle, which is I don't know, like being alone, being lonely, or not mattering or not knowing. And then it goes higher and higher. And I guess I like it because it's both reflective or parallel between individual and collective. Like if you could observe it in one person, you could probably observe it in like a collective, where it's also known as above, so below.
Where do you think we are? Where do you think you are individually in the stages of development of the spiral integral map, and also where do you think we are as as a species or civilization?
I don't know. I mean, as far as like pattern recognition would play here, it's like you could kind of see that if you go towards the higher end, Because right now everything's getting more abstracted, including power. Even power is abstracted. Back then, being powerful meant like you had a large army and guys with swords. Now it means like, hey, I control your fucking bank accounts and I could end your life. You know, so it's going up in a more abstract term. So maybe it's more of a between the yellow and the turquoise and the purple. Maybe like somewhere between there. I know that's a big range, but
Healthy hierarchies, living fully and responsibly. I feel like we're in the orange to the green still. Like we have, rational self, and then we have sensitive self. Kind of people becoming more self-aware of like their needs, or like that's like the highest I think most people are. They're starting to become aware that they have needs. They don't know how to like reach them, but they know they exist now.
so we're going into the yellow.
I think
I think we're going into the
yours?
green. I think maybe you and I are in the yellow at the beginning of it, but I don't think everyone is. I think a lot of people are still on the orange and brown, and I think that the green is like most of the standard humans are just hitting green. They're just becoming aware of the fact that they need to take care of themselves in order to help the world. They haven't integrated it yet.
And you could say each one, like on an individual level, is blocked by a negative polarity to the emotional spectrum. Right at the very bottom is obviously fear. Like if you're not materially secure, if you don't have shelter, if you don't have food, then you're going to be afraid of your own survival. Last thing you're going to be thinking about is like higher minded shit to solve.
Yeah, I think externally speaking, it's pretty interesting. So, of course, they always talk about the multipolar world and the rules-based world, which some people are dreaming about, not really sure if we actually have that. Then I'd point out that I think there is no coincidence that Trump is literally called the Orange Man. And if you read through the orange thing, it fits quite nicely.
Yeah,
and then, of course, what we
self-interest
have
playing the game
oftentimes-
Yeah,
Exactly. And then what we have is the green parties in many countries, and they are often here in the green. And what is the fear here? The fear of being excluded, which you also have in many spiritual circles, where at least for me, I'm like, maybe probably like you guys, quite too neurodivergent and individualistic. I'm like, I have no problem being excluded. Only because I'm not sitting in the circle doesn't mean I don't feel like I'm part of the world, right?
Yeah. It's kind of also makes me think about the lantern spectrum and the lantern core for the DC superhero universe, like how each color is indicative of a part of the emotional spectrum. The Green Lantern, the yellow, and the orange lantern was the lantern of greed or avarice.
Oh, okay.
I like the idea of the holistic self. I feel like, yeah, we're moving into holistic self, but then that's, the unitive self, witness self, action and non-action without attachment to outcome. I mean, really, I don't think we're there. I don't think very many people are there. Not really.
It's just because if I could even consider it, if I could even conceive of it, and I'm just an idiot, then that means like maybe, I don't know, I don't give myself enough credit, but as a layman, I'm like, if I could get it, I'm pretty sure like we're there as like a collective, if even one regular schmuck can do it, I'm pretty sure it's like it's gonna drag the rest, whether it might happen over a longer period of time. But
so you're in the yellow because you get it, and I feel like, you know what I mean. And so like turquoise is where we need to get people, because if we all get to turquoise, we can move to purple. Like you can go, if you're integrated, then you can start thinking about how other people can be integrated, and you can start helping them get there. And if everyone's integrated, then the Buddha can stop returning from nirvana, so to speak. That's when people might start to be self-aware that we're all every man, woman, and child at once.
And the world will change radically. That's why I never feel like, like spiritual change has to be something you have to fight for at this point, at this stage. I feel like we're just kind of leaning on something already tipping over,
For people asking, yeah, the AQAL is an integral map, all quadrants, all states lines. This is this idea that you have an awareness between the individual and group, from the interior to the exterior, from your self-awareness and self-consciousness, and like the exterior brain and organism, and how consciousness works with the, how the software works with the hardware, and the development both as an individual and the hopes that the individual will become by the time they're 90, right? Or something, when the idea is that hopefully by a certain point you realize like everyone's going through life, everyone's going through that experience, and the things that you think make you so different from your friends and your enemies are not that different, that they actually have the same issues with love and lack of love, right? I think that's kind of The Buddha said that in infinity of time, we all have known each other in other lives. Yeah, I think that's the purple. That's where we're kind of hoping to get
There's
to.
one more cool thing I want to bring up, Andreas. I just put it in the private chat. I recently finally started using ChatGPT. I have to say it's pretty lightning fast and actually quite useful if you know how to prompt it and what to use it for. And what I want to show you guys here is a book I read a long time ago by Vasily Kandinsky, supposedly first a lawyer, and then he made quite a few art pieces which are quite popular. And this is about a book called The Spiritual in Art, and he's talking about a triangle. Here we go again, and about the idea that artists are at the very top of the triangle. Maybe we want to briefly read through that because I think it very much relates to this whole spiral dynamic and collective evolution, dare I say, idea.
You want to read it with your nice Austrian accent? I mean, I'm a fan.
All right. Let's see. So here we go. So again, this is about the spiritual in art, das Geistige in der Kunst, a metaphor he uses to explain how spiritual life, art, and society evolve. It's one of the key ideas in his theory of abstract art. So the breakdown is the triangle as a symbol of spiritual process. He imagines that human spiritual life as an isosceles, I guess that's like a whatever type of geometry triangle standing at its base pointing upward. The triangle is divided into horizontal sections, each representing a different level of spiritual development, culture, or consciousness. And here he also says that anyone, whether a baker or anything else, can be part of one of these horizontal sections. And you have the tip of the triangle at the very top point. There's only a few individuals, often artists, visionaries, or prophets, that can exist. These are people ahead of their time, sensitive to new ideas, seeing truths or forms that the rest of society doesn't yet understand. At first, they're often ignored, ridiculed, or dismissed as incomprehensible. But later, society catches up and recognizes their importance. In the middle zone, the majority of people live comfortable within familiar conventions, habits, and tastes. These layers represent the mainstream cultural and spiritual life at the moment. At the bottom, the widest sections are people absorbed entirely in materialism, habit, and superficial concerns. They resist change and may not even sense the existence of spiritual striving. Then there is a continuous movement as the triangle is not static, it slowly moves upward over time. What was once avant-garde at the tip eventually trickles down into the broader layers of society, becoming accepted and understood. Meanwhile, the new pioneers push further upward to the next point. The role of the artist for Kandinsky, it belongs near the top, leading spiritual progress. Their role isn't just to decorate or entertain. That was his whole critique about art, also modern art. But remember, this was 1902, I think, and he's a theosophist. The role of art is to awaken spiritual awareness. Abstraction, in his view, was a way to bypass materialism and directly reach spiritual truths. What do you guys think?
Well said, Robot.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, that's wild, man. What were some of the art that this guy made? Does he have? Were they well-known pieces?
Oh yeah, they're pretty well known. It's like these color images where he's just putting, I guess, circles and colors and squares. I think he's quite well known. At least sometimes you see his art in whatever doctor's offices or whatever else.
Yeah,
one can
for
debate
sure.
about that, but he is quite popular. And that book is quite interesting, even just for that section. I think it's chapter 2 or 3. I actually read it myself at one point, but I thought, let's give the AI a try. And I think it actually did a quite accurate summary.
So you just asked it to summarize the chapter?
To summarize the triangle idea, because that's just how I remember it. But it's accurate.
Cool.
Yeah, I use that shit too. Whenever I see like cool Japanese kanji on some artifact, I'm like, time for the Google Eye. Hit translate. No need to learn this stupid language. It's not stupid. It's just hard.
Do you guys have pets, like a dog or anything?
Yeah, right here.
3 turtles.
You have a cat and you've got turtles, right?
I got
He's
a
very
cat and a
clingy.
dog here too. Yeah.
Do you think that like having a pet helps you? Like I think about caregivers, right? Like you're talking about your grandmother and how she took care of kids and then she took care of you, and how that affects somebody to be a caregiver, because you have to like, if you have a dog, you have to walk the dog, so you end up walking, and it's probably really healthy for you. And if you have to take care of a kid, you have to stop doing things that might be bad for you. Like you were saying, the smoking thing could be something that you try not to do because you don't want kids to do it, right?
Sure.
I mean, I mean, not always. It's not always like a lesson everyone learns, but it's an example. Like, I think, do you feel like being there's like a dharma to being a caregiver, and like is there some reason why you take care of turtles or why you take care of a cat? Or, I mean, obviously a cat's different than a dog because it kind of, you know, you at the same time that you're taking care of a cat, the cat kind of you maybe not like you worship a cat. It's maybe different than having a dog, you know. But
I think I get along with animals, but I don't talk about it because it sounds annoying when you hear about it. It's like, oh yeah, okay, animals love you, huh? But I've always
you
had
know who
really
else
great
loved
experience.
animals? Hitler. You know, yeah, I hear you. It's a
Maybe,
thing.
maybe
He
I
loved
don't know.
his
I've always gotten
dogs.
along with dogs.
What about turtles? What do
Hitler
you
was a
think
dog
about?
lover.
Yeah. He drew a lot of good pictures of dogs. Like Disney would have been jealous. But with turtles, what do you think? Like, what's it like to raise turtles? And like, what do you know? Because they live for like ever, bro. Like, what do you think's the deal with that? Why you have
Yeah,
turtles?
they might outlive me. It's possible, but turtles are really relaxing, man. They're calm. They're awesome. They're chill. They're nice to look at, and they kind of help you get centered. You know, help you lower the blood pressure a little bit. No, it's good.
I mean,
I'm-
we have to remember, like, animals were our oldest teachers. As a martial artist, like, even if it says something so abstract as swordsmanship, I even know that like the oldest martial arts teachers were like tigers and shit, and animals and cheetahs and panthers and monkeys. Like that's how we learned. It's like, see how the monkey does it? See how this tiger kills shit? We got to do shit like that.
Fair enough. Man. Fair enough.
That's an interesting point, actually. There's a lot to that,
So
probably.
before we stumble over it, I'm totally gonna put Andreas on the spot now. So
Oh, I
Melissa
was
asked,
wondering if
what's
you were gonna do
Andreas
it.
want with his shows? What does he want with his shows and programs? What's his vision or purpose? I'm gonna get him to say right now, Melissa. There you go, Andreas.
No. No, I'm just kidding.
Next
I think I don't know. I mean, how do you answer that? So probably, you know, we looked at that map, and I think that's kind of what do I want? I want everyone who watches our shows to be able to help me grow, and I want to maybe somehow lighten your day and maybe give you anything I can give you to help you with your future.
I mean,
You
to me,
know,
the
and
best part, sorry to interject, but because I'm a newcomer, so I have to put this in there. Like, I think the best part about shows like this is the feeling you get of as if you're in the same room with the people talking, you know, and it's not a room you feel alienated from, like real life would kind of thrust you into 24/7. Sorry, what were you saying?
no, I mean that's a big
Aliens congregate.
Yeah, and I honestly, you know, in terms of someone made I don't know if they made the joke, but they were kind of serious. Like the vision is X church and the vision is X church and a timeline divergence. I think save the future, save the past. Just my take. I think you might be onto something, you know. And I do think there's probably a lot of lessons that we can learn from each other the easier way. So one of the things I think that I find a value in parents or in, you know, learning from other people is that lessons can be so expensive, like physically and emotionally and economically. Like those lessons are so expensive. Going to school can take so much time. Can you condense 4 years or 8 years of school or 20 years of school into some memes, right? Like, because if people can get those information as quickly as possible and they can go on with their lives and it doesn't cost them losing, like I know people that have lost limbs over lessons, right? You know, lost family members. I have friends who've died. I want to see people learn from those lessons so that they don't have to go through the same thing, because it sucks, man. The Sisyphus thing, like I try to be grateful to be Sisyphus. I try to be happy. Sisyphus tries to be happy. You have to imagine Sisyphus happy. But if you're constantly pushing a rock up a hill and then someone takes your place and they're pushing the rock up the hill because it rolled back down once you got to the top, you're a dick. You know, like you should keep that rock at the top of the hill so someone can push it up higher. I don't know. I think that's kind of the whole point. That's one of the reasons why I mean, we're talking about this integral map. I think it's valuable because if we really did all this, dude, if humanity went from instinct to animistic through power self, thinking like, oh man, I'm important, I'm so great, you know, I'm a freaking warrior or something, and then being like, well, really, like a warrior has a place in the community, then we should figure out how everyone has a role in the community and what we need to actually be the best we can be for each other because there's a value there. And if we're all integrated and we get to a holistic place, then maybe we're gonna stop having war. I mean, maybe we'll stop having people that are starving to death while other people are eating fries. The whole thing to me seems like there's actually a solution to this because we're so far. A lot of people think that there's no chance but like, if you think about it, dude, if you use a map like this and you realize we're so far, we're so much closer to the edge, we're so much closer to the end, we're past the middle point, we're past the point of no return in terms of the human experiment, in terms of the ascension of consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And you shouldn't go
raising
back.
the vibration, raising the frequency.
Yeah, because it's actually further to fall than it is to get there at this point.
I mean, I think like it, and even in the way the New Agers put it, isn't so far off from this. Because, I mean, really, what we're talking about, pushing that boulder, like in the most experiential terms, it's going through the cycles, emotional cycles of life, like feeling angry, then feeling sad, then feeling happiness again, then feeling this. Like it could be exhausting, you know, for some people, especially if you're not physically fit for it or you have the mental fortitude for it. But raising the frequency essentially means speeding that up. Because like if a moment comes where you're angry, but then you know things will be all right because you're like, it's whatever it is, you know, I don't want to waste my time being angry. And then you go back and then you're basically speeding that frequency up to the point where if you're looking at it becomes a self-propelling engine. It has to go somewhere. And I think that's why a spiritual awakening starts speeding that cycle up. And then once you speed it up, you cultivate more chi, mana, whatever you call it. Then you can do all sorts of shit with it. Bad things, good things. Try not to do bad things.
I'm also a sucker for digital identity because I think that so many people that would change their bodies drastically, like we started at this conversation, like if you played video games where you could play as anybody, man, woman, beast of the field. I like to play as a dolphin or as a shark. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't need surgery to be a shark at this point because, you know, you can have a digital identity and there's maybe something there about ego death too, that you can, I honestly believe that a lot of the best things come from ideas that we've had. Like ideas might come first in some ways. It might not be that we created those ideas. I agree with Chris that like ideas flow into us to an extent, but a lot of the time there's a spiritual reality that exists before the material. I kind of believe that. I think that there's maybe like Neoplatonic concepts outdate material concept, like straight lines and curves and love and justice probably are older than reality itself. And reality's never lived up to it. Like a ruler will never become a straight line. It'll never quite make it, but it's emulating some sort of spiritual idea of a straight line. Law will never become justice. It can't do it because it's something abstract, but at least it's an effort to try to achieve something like that. So we're able to become the people we want to be. And looking at recordings of recording my life and seeing how I've changed over years. I mean, I have videos of me as like a little kid and I can see, I think it's kind of great to have journals. You look at the Rothschilds, look at the richest families in the world, and they have journals of their whole lives. They're taught to journal their lives, to journal the fake news, to journal what's really going on, and to look at their grandparents' journals and to look back 500 years. Because if you have your own track of history, then because a lot of time history is told by the winners and they don't have to be telling the truth. So keeping a record of everything, and at least the things that, not even just the things you think are important, just talking about your day and recording it and what thoughts you're processing, that can be really valuable for you in the future or even someone else in the future.
Yeah.
If you're human, you've probably already been a shark. Fair enough, Buddha.
I'm so glad you're promoting journaling as an avid daily journalist, draftsman myself.
You know who else liked draftsman? Hitler. No, I'm just
Hitler did that stuff.
They
wrote everything down. They wrote it all down, dude.
What's funny though is like what got me started doing it. It was because I did that 30-day semen retention experiment. I was like, let's try this out. This can't be real. And then like you can't become a wizard from like not spunking it. And then I tried it. I was like, I think there's a little bit of truth to this.
It's like
It made me
like levitating swords and everything, and shooting electricity out your fingertips or other tips.
it made me quit porn. And that alone to me is pretty magical.
Yeah, I think that's another thing, is being really aware of what kind of media you consume. And so there's a lot of media we could make that's probably more easier on the algorithm, you could say. Like if we made more videos about how much we hated something going on today, like we should just look up on the newspaper and figure out what's happening in the world and be like, don't you hate it? Don't you? But like, I feel like
dude, we can talk about how Hitler is so much like Hitler and we would just get ratings out the ass probably.
Let's do an experiment sometime. But generally speaking, I feel like it's dangerous, not just for yourself, but for everyone else, because you're creating a feedback loop there. So the more you can try to make something that people want, but like that also is healthy, that it's a huge difference from what else I see. And, so I feel like it makes it more important somehow. Like if you're trying to make the world a better place. And I don't know, I relate to what you were saying earlier about you don't have to be a parent yet if you're creating in all sorts of ways. If you're being a mentor, like mentorship is like a huge thing that you can maybe justify your existence for a while, because not everyone has a wife, not everyone's gonna get one. Maybe, I mean, I don't know, bro, because the thing is, there's an expression, there's an ass for every seat, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of lonely women out there. And don't pretend to yourself that it's actually as difficult as it is to find the part of the world where some woman's waiting for you desperately. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should be with someone who's desperate. I mean, I get that. I think that people need to, try to be healthy and integrated, because two integrated people are at least better than two codependent, fractured people. That's probably true. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in love and relationships. I mean, I've had them, but I don't know. I'm not selling that book right now. That's all I can say. I mean, in general, it's important to try to do something for people, even if you can't do if you can't be a woman, be a man, like try to do what you can do to help people as much as you can. If you're able to help someone who's not your own child, then you should do that. Something like that. Someone was saying in the chat earlier about Jesus, saying like Jesus knew what he had to do. And I was like, but God didn't really kill Jesus. Man did. It wasn't a lightning strike, right? We have to address someday like man's choices, instead of blaming God for everything and saying it was all God's plan that people screw up. Because I think that's another thing, is like taking responsibility would be a pretty good step for most people of any religion. But
the Jews.
Yeah. I look at it more like it wasn't God's fault. It was more like God was, I've been spending centuries trying to reach you people, and now I'm going to send my own son.
And they killed the guy, It's like...
And they crucified him.
Yeah, because he fucked shit up. He came in and he started flipping tables and shit.
Yeah, the religious people were like, dude, you know what, God? You're really screwing up our religion. That's the thing. That's the lesson I think people should get out of Christianity and Judaism and any religion at all. That when that's, I think, the joke about it. Like God's like, hey, you're worshiping me wrong, and then they killed God for saying that, because they're like, you know what? If we just get rid of God, then we could have this religion thing in the bag, and it'll be great. And that's how you get orthodoxy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Oh man, who knows? I don't know. Religion is, yeah, everything over time gets corrupted. So I mean, religion, which is something that's just been something to brainwash people, for the lack of a better word.
Yeah, but personally,
I mean, there's a lot of good you can get out of it. I do know, but I mean, I
don't think religion can stop people from having a personal relationship with God through like some spontaneous event or experiences. I think that's the anomaly. That's the thing, that even like religious institutions with such a vice grip on like this metaphysical corner of the study, like I don't even think they could stop it, where people just spontaneously find God in the sincerest sense. And to them, it's like they don't really need the religious institution. All they need to do is do right by their own shit, because they find God within. And once you find God within, then it's like, yeah, I'm just going to try to like not fuck with other people, because like it's just messing with myself, because they have God in them too, whether they know it or not. And that's the real battle, right? It's like whether you find God within you or you don't, whether it takes a religion, whether it takes a near-death experience, whether it takes a near lifetime of trauma, regardless, like however people get there.
Okay. Maybe it's God, maybe it's not, but
I can't believe it's not
agree.
God.
I can't believe it's God.
New product from the church. Well, no, wait, because like we're almost done, but Jordan, like you got thoughts on that? Like you're like maybe it's not, maybe it's something else. Like I mean, I'm always interested to hear that. Like that, you know, because were you raised religious?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Yeah, I went to some Christian, like some religious Catholic schools, and grandparents were pretty religious, but I don't know, man. Like, I found out pretty quickly that church is fucking boring, and there's something going on here. And I
A lot of Sadducees, a lot of people that killed Christ in those churches still for some reason.
And just the more I hear, and then you learn about other religions and how like people say they're so similar, but they're so different. But the similarities seem to shine out.
So what is it then? Maybe, you know, just like throwing out there, like you're thinking, like, you know, what's another way to look at it then?
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, you can look at it like you can. If religion is real in the sense that there is some sort of God, higher creator, I mean, not everyone can be right? So, and I don't think anyone is 100% right. It would hard to believe that would be a fact. So, I mean, it doesn't matter necessarily what religion you're following. If you're trying to look for God or whatever you might consider finding God be, as long as it's not like you know, a negative take, because there's a lot of religions that have a lot of violence integrated into it, and a lot of other negative stuff integrated to it. So I mean, as long as you're not hurting people, it's I mean, I always, just growing up, I always thought religion was supposed to be so positive, but you grow up and you realize like there's a lot of nasty stuff out there that ties back to religion. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, how do we look at it? There's a lot of ways of looking at it, i.e. religions, but I mean,
I think a lot of what spiraled me out into becoming out of atheism, I guess, or strict materialism, was this idea that you know, you're a conscious being, you're a thinking person, you know, you have conscious thoughts, as do I, as does Andreas, and we're all of the universe. So that means in some sense the universe is conscious, if through us, and that's like a miracle in and of itself. Like, you are the universe experiencing itself. I mean, that to me kind of touches on like some divine truth that is also rooted in like what we understand as our spatial reality. Because the universe we could conceptualize just because we have a name for it, but the fact that something so vast also has a consciousness in and of itself, like, that's a big deal, you know. And there's at least something that much greater than us that has some semblance of an intelligence, you know.
Yeah, there must be something going on out there, because it didn't just yeah, I mean, not to get into it at the end of the show, but like something must have started this wheel, right? So what it is, or who it is, or how it is, I have no idea. I don't know. Could have been this guy.
I like
Of course, the Jesuits.
You know, the Jesuits get a bad rap, bro, but like, I think the more you look into, like, I mean, 'cause a lot of Catholics don't like the Jesuit Catholics. They're like, whoa, you were raised by the Jesuits, like you were Catholic? Oh, good. Oh, Jesuits? Oh, you know, because they look at them as basically atheists, because they deconstruct spirituality and find a material explanation for everything. But, you know, I grew up thinking that the Drake equation basically proved God and other gods exist. Because if you think about it, the way Chris just kind of eloquently put that we're a demonstrative evidence of consciousness and spirituality. So if this exists and you exist, all of a sudden, and you start looking at life even just around the earth,
the image of God,
there's kind of a reflection there of this existing. And if this exists and more of it can exist, then there's a probability function that will say this. I mean, as you're looking at things expanding, more and more potential existence is out there, here, inside and outside our reality or our own perspective. And if we're evolving, which looks like things are changing, and maybe transhumanism with singularity and technology and everything is you're making AI and everything like that. The logic of what we define a God as, which is basically someone who's a supermensch and an ubermensch, like a human that can be immortal, can be in multiple places at once, omnipresent, have superpowers to realize any idea instantly, the singularity with technology, omnipotence, to know all things, which at this point, it's very different than it was 20 years ago. Anyone can grab their phone and they can wiki it and chat GPT it and know something instantaneously. And you have access to information. And you can also not know something. God can make a rock that God can't move, right? Can God make something that God can't move? It has to, because of the definition of omnipotence. So if we're living in a world like that already, and the potential for that exists, then a God would evolve, even if a God didn't create itself, or even if a God did create itself. So there's evidence in such a mathematical level that these things that we describe would happen in nature, in our own nature. It seems that there's no way out of the idea of there being like super beings or singularities or consciousness in a harmonized sense or resonance. I mean, basically any kind of form of any potential exists in some way. No beginning, no end, alpha and omega. I think you brought up just a second ago. I agree that that's probably also the idea that space time itself is the material function that we're seeing come after the Neoplatonic concepts we were talking about earlier, like rulers, straight lines,
So
justice,
basically,
love.
you're saying if you see a shadow, something's got to be casting it. And what makes us not shadows of something higher dimension, like higher in existing in a higher dimension that we just can't see or can't perceive?
Way better than my rant. That's all I needed.
No, I mean that was all right. That was ripped straight from Flatland, which is a great story / little movie. I fucking love that. It's like
Flatland's
just tattooed into my memory.
Dude, Pac-Man's from Flatland for sure. It's a super strong one. All right. Well, anything you wanted us to contribute to the finale here? No, that wasn't a. That was, you have to. That's the way it works. Raph has to say something now, then Jordan, then Chris. That's how we do it.
With great opinions, everyone. I just shout out everyone's podcast. So at Divulgence Pod or Terrorist Podcast, you're here on Exertus. You see my handle right there. I think it was a cool discussion. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope you, dear viewer, you did too. Watch Exertus and have a great day. Jordan.
Right on. Yeah, this was a great talk, guys. Glad to be a part of the team. If you guys aren't doing anything tonight, stay tuned for another Divulgence Exertus episode with Thomas, a Paranoid American. We're going live around 7 Eastern, so that'll be fun. So just please follow Divulgence on YouTube and Twitter. We are going to be Exertus in the Exertus verse. We're going to be doing a giveaway for an iPad soon, and you're going to need to follow Divulgence if you want to get into that anyways. So if you want to take the first step and follow Divulgence on YouTube and Twitter, that'd be awesome. But more info on that soon. But as always, it's great to see you guys. Chris, Raph, Exertus, I love you guys.
Exactly. And another step will be using FChat. So remember, thank you guys for being a part of this and joining the uncensored chat. It's been really cool to follow the conversation here and see what people are talking about while we're having this conversation on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Rumble, on Twitch, on everywhere.
We're like herpes. We're everywhere.
Everywhere. You can't escape the Exertus verse, X-Church, amen. I think that's cool. Do me a favor and watch the Soviet Lost Boys, Death of the Family, and the Bolshevik Foundry. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I spent a quick minute on it. I think it's one of our. It's a very classic Exertus kind of experience. So some people have been asking for something like that instead of just the lives. So you got both. I think that's pretty cool. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for supporting us. Thanks for sending your donations to exertus.com. And it's rad. and I'm grateful. I stole your line. Go ahead, Chris.
No, it's all good. Thanks again. You know, you sound like broken records. You're saying thanks all the time, but it's true. Ultimately, infinite gratitude. And I'm always happy to just show up for you guys. So you can count on that. That's it.
All right. Well, until next time, see you guys a little later for the Divulsion stream. Much love.